Welcome back. It's great to see you again as we continue our journey. We're now moving from the high-level, aspirational statements you typically find in a code of conduct to the very bedrock of a functional compliance program, the policies and procedures that give it structure and force. Think of your code of conduct as the constitution of your organization's ethical nation. It sets forth the core principles and values. Policies, then, are the laws enacted to govern specific territories of risk, translating those broad principles into concrete, actionable directives for your employees. Without well-crafted and effectively implemented policies, your code of conduct remains little more than a noble but ultimately powerless document. It's in the careful, deliberate development of policy that we begin to build the operational sinew and muscle of compliance, creating a framework that doesn't just state our intentions, but actively guides behavior, mitigates risk, and provides a defensible position when things go wrong. This is where the abstract ideals of ethics and compliance meet the messy reality of day-to-day business operations. And our job is to ensure that meeting is as seamless and effective as possible. Before you ever write a single word of a new policy, you must begin with the fundamental question of why. A policy that doesn't exist to mitigate a specific identified risk is, at best, a waste of everyone's time, and at worst, a source of confusion that can actually create new risks. The process of policy development must be inextricably linked to your organization's risk assessment. Imagine you're an architect designing a building. You don't just start adding rooms and features at random. You work from a blueprint that is based on the building's intended purpose, the nature of the terrain, and potential environmental hazards. In the same way, your portfolio of compliance policies must be a direct response to the landscape of legal and ethical risks your organization faces. A policy on anti-bribery exists because you've identified a risk of corruption in your sales channels. A policy on data privacy exists because you handle sensitive customer information, creating a risk of legal penalties and reputational damage. This risk-based approach ensures that your compliance efforts are focused where they matter most, allowing you to allocate resources efficiently and demonstrate to regulators and stakeholders that your program is thoughtful, targeted, and built for a purpose. Policy development is fundamentally a collaborative endeavor, not a solitary edict issued from the compliance department's ivory tower. Attempting to write policies in a vacuum is one of the fastest routes to failure, as it almost guarantees the resulting document will be impractical, misaligned with business realities, and ultimately ignored. The first step in drafting is therefore not writing, but talking. You must identify and proactively engage the key stakeholders and subject matter experts from across the business. If you are developing a policy on gifts and entertainment, the sales and marketing teams are your most crucial partners, as they live in that world every day. For a records management policy, you need input from IT, legal, and every operational department that creates or stores significant data. Engaging these stakeholders isn't just about gathering information. It's about building shared ownership. When people have a hand in creating the rules, they are far more likely to understand, respect, and champion them. Your role as a compliance professional is often that of a facilitator, guiding these diverse groups toward a consensus that balances risk mitigation with operational pragmatism. Transforming the sentiment from a policy compliance is forcing on us to a standard we all agree is necessary for our success. When the time comes to actually draft the policy, your guiding principle should be absolute, uncompromising clarity. The ultimate goal is to create a document that an employee at any level of the organization, and perhaps for whom the language is not their first, can read and understand precisely what is expected of them without needing a legal interpreter. This means you must ruthlessly eliminate legalese, corporate jargon, and convoluted sentence structures. Write in the active voice, use simple language, and break down complex ideas into manageable parts. Instead of a vague prohibition on inappropriate use of company assets, create a clear rule that says you must not use your company-issued laptop for personal freelance work. Where possible, Use concrete examples and scenarios to illustrate your points. A gift policy becomes infinitely more useful when it moves beyond abstract principles and provides specific monetary thresholds, pre-approval requirements for certain values, and clear examples of what constitutes an acceptable token of appreciation versus an inappropriate bribe. The true test of a well-written policy is not whether it is legally perfect, but whether it is humanly understandable and provides unambiguous guidance for real-world situations. A well-structured policy document provides a consistent and predictable framework that helps employees navigate and apply its contents effectively. This structure isn't about bureaucratic box ticking. It's about creating a user-friendly interface for your rules. Every policy should begin with a clear, descriptive title, followed by a purpose or objective statement that succinctly explains why the policy exists and what risk it is designed to mitigate. Next, a scope section is critical. It must explicitly state who the policy applies to, all employees, specific departments, contractors, global operations, and what activities it covers. Following this, you have the core policy statements, which are the specific rules and principles themselves. A definitions section is invaluable for clarifying any terms that could be ambiguous, ensuring everyone is working from the same understanding of concepts like confidential information or conflict of interest. It is also crucial to outline specific roles and responsibilities, clarifying what is expected of employees, managers, and the compliance department in upholding the policy. Finally, including references to related policies, procedures, or external regulations helps to build a cohesive and interconnected compliance framework. The act of publishing a policy on the company intranet is not implementation. It is merely the beginning of the implementation process. To truly bring a policy to life, you need a strategic and multifaceted rollout plan that goes far beyond a simple announcement email. Effective implementation is fundamentally about communication and training. This communication must be tailored to the different audiences affected by the policy. The information your IT administrators need about a new data classification policy is vastly different from what your marketing team needs to know. The rollout plan should consider various channels to ensure the message penetrates the organization. All-hands announcement from leadership to signal importance, targeted emails with key takeaways, deep dive sessions for high-risk groups, and integration into new hire onboarding. The objective is to move employees beyond mere awareness of the policy's existence to a genuine understanding of its principles and how it applies directly to their specific roles and responsibilities. A successful implementation means the policy has been absorbed into the collective consciousness of the workforce. If policies represent the what and the why of your compliance expectations, procedures are the indispensable how. A policy without associated procedures is like a destination without a map. It tells you where you need to go, but provides no guidance on how to get there. Procedures are the detailed, step-by-step instructions that operationalize a policy's principles. For example, a robust conflict of interest policy, the what, should be supported by a clear procedure outlining precisely how an employee must disclose a potential conflict, what information they need to provide, who reviews the disclosure, and what the documentation process entails. Similarly, an investigations policy is made functional by procedures that detail how to initiate an investigation, how to conduct witness interviews, how to handle evidence, and how to write a final report. Without these practical, ground-level instructions, employees are left to interpret the policy's intent on their own, which inevitably leads to inconsistent application, confusion, and a significant increase in compliance risk. Procedures are what transform abstract rules into consistent, repeatable, and defensible business processes. The pinnacle of effective policy implementation is reached when compliance is no longer a separate, conscious action, but is seamlessly embedded into the very fabric of day-to-day business processes. The goal is to design your systems and workflows in a way that makes following the policy the path of least resistance. Instead of merely having a policy that requires due diligence on new third-party vendors, You should work with IT and procurement to build mandatory due diligence checks directly into the vendor onboarding software. The system itself should prevent a new vendor from being paid until the compliance stipulated checks have been completed and approved. This approach moves the burden of compliance from the employee's memory to the system's logic. In another example, an expense reporting system can be configured to automatically flag or block submissions that exceed the monetary limits defined in your gift and entertainment policy. By weaving these controls directly into the tools people use every day, you make compliance an ambient, ever-present reality rather than a document they might consult once a year. This is how you make doing the right thing the easy thing. Before any policy can be implemented, it must pass through a formal and well-defined review and approval process. This process serves the dual purpose of ensuring the policy's quality and demonstrating senior leadership's commitment to its enforcement. The review cycle should start with the key stakeholders and subject matter experts who are involved in the drafting phase, allowing them to provide a final check for operational practicality. From there, it should escalate to the compliance officer and the legal department for a thorough review against regulatory requirements and existing legal obligations. The final and most critical step is obtaining a formal sign-off from the appropriate level of senior management or a designated governance body, such as a compliance committee. This high-level approval is not just a rubber stamp. It is a powerful message to the entire organization that the principles within the policy are not just suggestions from the compliance team, but are core expectations endorsed and supported by the highest levels of leadership. This visible commitment is absolutely essential for fostering a culture where policies are taken seriously. Developing and implementing policies is a dynamic and foundational process that breathes life into your ethical principles, turning them into the practical architecture of a resilient compliance program. I'll see you in the next lecture.